referenced the Oklahoma ranking prior to the loss against Baylor at number 8 in the college football playoff rankings. Had we had, Jason, the conversation before the season started that Oklahoma would have one loss after 10 games and be pushed down to number 13 in the playoff rankings, nobody would have believed it, because had you told most people Oklahoma's going to be 9-1 after 10 games, okay, well, we probably expected that they would be undefeated, but okay, they tripped up and they're still fine. And if they go through and win the Big 12, they're fine and they'll be in the playoff. But the lack of respect from the playoff committee was apparent from the first week of rankings at number 8, placing them behind a number of one-loss teams at the time: Michigan, Michigan State, Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon. My goodness, 5 teams with one loss that they were ranked behind, including a group of 5 in Cincinnati. And now with a loss, but still the Big 12 championship straight ahead within their control, they're down to number 13. And I don't know with that number 13 next to their name, if that's the way the committee perceives them at this point, with a win against Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and let's say a rematch against Oklahoma State. That's going to be an impressive run, but I don't know if that lifts them all the way up to the top 4.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't think so, Mark. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I think the respect or lack thereof that Oklahoma got in the initial, which was warranted from my perspective. I think, and then being at number 13 now, it's probably about right where they need to be based on the the track record that they have. I mean, you could make an argument that some of these teams below them are actually playing better football than Oklahoma is. Texas A&M, even though I know that they lost last week, BYU, Wisconsin playing really well right now. But I mean, they still got the 3 losses. So yeah, I think it's a hard path for Oklahoma to go down. Even to your point, Mark, if they beat Oklahoma State twice, or I think probably what looks better for them is they're able to avenge their loss to Baylor in the Big 12 championship game. If that kind of comes to fruition, but yeah, no, I think that the path is much more difficult, and exactly to your point, we've never seen this from an Oklahoma team in terms of where they are with one loss. They've in the past they've not went a full season, being completely undefeated since I believe 2004 was the last time that they finished the regular season undefeated, and obviously that's not going to be the case this year. But still, they've had one loss, and then they still have found a way to make them to get themselves back up in the playoff conversation. And I mean, and I guess there's probably a path where they could get there, but I think they need a lot of things to go their way over the next 3 weeks. I mean, they need a Georgia. Georgia needs to go undefeated and kind of remove Alabama or a second SEC team from that, from that consideration. They probably need an Oregon loss to not have the Pac-12 to have a representative there. They probably would require an Ohio State to kind of run the table, and so that there's no other Big Ten team like in the mix there. And the Big Ten's probably likely only to get one anyways. This year it's going to be one of them, but it just kind of depends on who it is, probably. And then I don't know what they think. I don't know what the committee would think of a one-loss Big 12 champion, if it's Oklahoma, over Cincinnati. Let's say. I mean, Cincinnati's a big winner in this, right? With they're still hoping and continuing to covet chaos to happen in in these conferences. So a lot of football to be played left. There's still an outside chance, but the path is much tougher than it's ever been, I think, for Oklahoma.
So the reality right now is that Oklahoma is not playing good enough football to win the Big 12 or get to the playoff. But we know that the talent's there, the track record's certainly there, and the teams that they're playing are good, but they're not daunting, dominant teams. So are they as good as those teams or better? Yeah. Um, they're right in that range. We don't know how it's going to unfold, but for argument's sake, if they flip a switch, and none of us would expect them to march out there and start beating Iowa State and Oklahoma State 49-0, but they win fairly impressively. They're 10-point wins, and they knock off an Iowa State team that's going to finish the season then I guess 7-5, and then they beat an Oklahoma State team that's going to be 10-2 after Oklahoma defeats them. And then they get Baylor in that rematch that in a sense cancels the loss that they suffered on the road earlier, and they beat a Baylor team that was 11-1.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know how they can't suddenly have to reset their thought process on Oklahoma football if they get through Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Baylor and are sitting there as the Big 12 champion with one loss. It's certainly going to be a much better resume than Oregon's, even with the Ohio State win.
oh no, you're absolutely right. No, and I think that will be part of the conversation if Oklahoma is able to do that. I mean, the thoughts of the the chances of Baylor making it to the Big 12 championship game is not strong right now. With if Oklahoma runs the table, I think their best path right now is for Oklahoma to lose a couple of games these to make it to the Big 12 championship game, because Baylor's coming in with those two conference losses already. So they would need one of two things. I think they would need Oklahoma to lose these next two games, or they would need to win out, obviously, and have Oklahoma State lose at Texas Tech on Saturday, and then obviously lose to Oklahoma um, on Thanksgiving weekend. So, but who knows? And they got a tough game themselves at Kansas State, who's playing pretty well right now in the Big 12. So, yeah, there's a lot of craziness that's still going to happen. I'm sure you've got opportunities for based on tough road games. You've got opportunities for maybe four, possibly five teams ahead of Oklahoma to lose. To lose Saturday. You've got Oregon going to Utah. You've got you got Michigan State obviously playing Ohio State. You've got Oklahoma State going to Texas Tech. You've got Wake Forest going to Clemson. You've got Baylor going to Kansas State. So there's opportunities there if things go right, that Oklahoma, could put themselves in position with a win. And to your point on the quality of wins that they'll have, which will be I know Iowa State's not a top 25 team, but I think that still probably brings a little bit of respect to
It
it.
should.
And then certainly Oklahoma State either twice, or Oklahoma State and or Baylor.
Yeah, I can't criticize, at least in this way, the committee at this point, because I'm kind of taking the same tact with my rankings, and now I'm starting to rethink it. But basically, if you believe in the head-to-head, trumping everything, and of course, along with the head-to-head, there has to be a record that is the same, if not better, than the other team. So it's not like Oregon can be 6-4 and you take them over a 9-1 Ohio State. It's because Oregon's been able to, much like Oklahoma, navigate a schedule and get through with only one loss. But if you honor the head-to-head, then you place Oregon in front of Ohio State, and then that creates some kind of a lineup after that, because then you have to put you. Let's see if I could be a little bit more clear about this. Either you're going to value that Oregon win at a high rate and just put them in that 2 or 3 spot. The committee's got them at 3, and then you've got this lineup behind Oregon because Ohio State's gaining much respect too. But if you're going to keep them behind Oregon, then you got this lineup behind Ohio State. Or you basically say Oregon's resume is not that strong. We're still going to honor the head-to-head with Ohio State, but Michigan, Michigan State, Cincinnati, we're going to put all them with a better resume. I don't know about Cincinnati, but with a better resume, they don't have a loss in front of Oregon, and then that would put Ohio State at the back of the line because they've got the head-to-head loss. It's just, I think it's the first time that I've had to deal with this situation of a team that goes out there and gets maybe the best win in the country early in the season, and they don't back it up on the field in terms of performance, but they also don't implode and lose 3 games. They stay on the high wire and they're able to navigate it. And so I think people are having an issue of what to do with Oregon.
Yeah, it's to your point, Mark, it's very, very bizarre. We talked about Oklahoma resembling the Florida State team of a few years ago. Maybe Oregon's a better example of them. Exactly, have a great win against Ohio State, but has really been unimpressive every single game. I mean, last week was no different, 38-24 over Washington State. It's okay. I mean, it's not anything to they were never in danger of losing the game, but again, they were never. It was not a dominant performance. But I think the only thing that I would, disagree with the committee on, either head to head trumps everything or it doesn't. They've sent two mixed messages with ranking Oregon above Ohio State and then ranking Michigan above Michigan State. So I mean, I think those are the two things that they struggle defending, I think, and just kind of listening to the commentary. I mean, I think they're I don't know why they put themselves in that position, which to rank Michigan above Michigan State. I mean, they kind of had to do it this week since they did it the first week, but still, it's just a little bizarre to me to send both of those messages. But yeah, I mean, I think this Saturday will be the toughest game that Oregon has played, and I think they're an underdog at Utah. I think Utah's like a 2 or 3 point pick that last time I saw. So there's just some great games here down the stretch these last couple of weeks that will kind of solidify these rankings and and where people will be at. But no, I'm with you. I think it's bizarre. It's bizarre in terms of what that what those two mixed messages between those 4 teams look like.
And it truly is, especially when you take it to this level. Ohio State, Oregon play, Oregon wins, fine. But then they go play these separate schedules, and Ohio State's clearly playing better competition, and that will continue to increase the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
By far. So Ohio State's almost playing a different level. They are playing a different level of football compared to Oregon. So they're keeping Oregon ahead of Ohio State. They're not keeping Michigan State, or never did place them ahead of Michigan, even though their schedules are comparable and their results and performance against these comparable teams and much the same teams. You would think, okay, Michigan and Michigan State's resumes and performance on the field versus the same teams or like teams is very similar. So we're going to really honor the head-to-head because they both beat Nebraska by a field goal. Michigan was more impressive against Indiana than Michigan State, but Michigan State annihilated Rutgers and Michigan did not. You could go through again, because they're playing in the same conference and in the same division, they have all these comparable results that you can compare. And you really can't make a decided outside of the head-to-head. You can't make it. It's difficult to make a decision between Michigan State is my point. So why not honor the head-to-head versus Ohio State and Oregon? You're honoring the head-to-head, and Ohio State's gone and played a much more difficult schedule in dominant fashion versus Oregon. It doesn't make any sense.
No, no, it doesn't. I'm with you. I think they have it backwards. I mean, I would see ranking Ohio State above Oregon, and then exactly to your point, um making the head to head really matter when they have like schedules. But I mean, I can't imagine a situation if Oregon, and maybe it won't matter because it's, you know, 3 versus 4, but I mean, it matters in terms of who you play. You don't want to have to play Georgia in your first game of the playoffs, but um, I can't imagine a scenario where if Oregon wins out and Ohio State wins out, that Ohio State's not at least the 3 seed and they're flip flopped here, just because of exactly what you said. Ohio State has two certainly at this point they have two top 10 wins if they were able to win the games ahead of them with Michigan State and then Michigan next week. I think Michigan goes to Maryland, I think, on Saturday. So,
Yep.
I mean, not a it's not a walkover, but not a tough game. But they win those two games, and then likely, I mean, Wisconsin has Nebraska Saturday, then they go to Minnesota, the last game of the year. So, if they win those games, likely a number, what Wisconsin, like 15 now, I think, likely a top 12 Wisconsin team, whereas Oregon has Utah, which is a top 25 team now. But if they beat them, they probably won't be top 25, or Arizona State won't be top 25 when they play them in the Pac-12 championship game. So I think I think logic will have to win out at some point, even though it's kind of staring them in the face currently. I think after a while that logic will certainly have to win out between those two teams.